And there will be a chat, and they can ask questions. And
Yeah.
it takes them a while to get in. But we are live, according to my computer, and I would like everyone to meet John Davis of John of New, and that's NEW.
And
And
I'm happy to be here.
and he's coming to us from, you're in the great state of Ohio, right?
I am. I am in the great state of Ohio, in the rubber city, Akron, Ohio.
Ah, well, tires got to come from somewhere. Oh, painter. Oh, painter's on, so I know that they're going to start flooding in. And the first thing, oh yeah, Marie V, Rachel B, thank you. We're two of her favorite people, Rachel B.
Oh yeah, I see her on my channel
And
all the
May
time.
Yang, yes. And Melinda is here. And Angelita, who's been one of my students in learning the garden. I did show John the garden earlier. We might roll some garden questions, but I really kind of want to feature this about John and about what he does, because I think what he does and who he is fascinating. And I picked yesterday when I was getting ready for the show, I pulled a crystal card, as you guys know I always do, and this time it was malachite, and it's for healing. And I think that perfectly represents what John's trying to work on and do with us and is actually achieving. But the actual crystal meanings, the diva meanings of malachite, and I have a beautiful malachite heart that I used to wear when I was reading. And its deep physical healing penetrates all levels of your being and promotes overall healing. Assists in healing bones, bruises, and other physical disease. It also opens and expands the heart chakra, allowing the power of love to dissolve deeply held resentments and sadness. So if you're in that mood, if you're working on that, malachite's a good one. And it eases deep heartache. So I think, not that John brought us that, but I think John brings us the message that we don't have to live with that. And I think that's really important. I went
It's
look,
hugely important.
and if you're going to ask us a question, you need to put it in capital letters, because I'm back to teeny tiny print on little computer to one side and old lady eyes. So, but everybody's saying hi. I don't know if you can see the chatter, John, but
I can't see the chat, so
okay.
I'll have to rely on you. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello to everyone. I'm really happy to be here.
Okay. And one of the questions that I got, and I got this actually in a private email when someone knew I was going to be meeting you. This is someone I actually know. And he's been just like you were regressed and you were told, who you are. He wants to know, was he really Lazarus?
Was he? I
Can you
don't have
do
a
that?
sense. I can't do that.
Okay.
And but here's the interesting thing is I don't know whether I have lost that sense or not, because once you come out into the world and say that you were John the beloved apostle, everybody wants a biblical connection. And well, the last time when I was out speaking, oh my gosh, I was like every day everybody was coming up and they all knew who they were and they all wanted. And so at one point in the past, I had to stop actually even allowing myself to do that, because it was missing the point. It doesn't matter who you were. It only
It's
matters
what are
who
you
you
doing
are.
with this life?
Right, exactly.
The only irony for him is he's died 3 times on the operating table. He's a personal friend and he's always come back. So I figure he's probably as good a candidate as I'm ever going to know.
Well, and let me say what I do know of Lazarus. Lazarus was an extremely generous man who literally funded a lot of Jeshua's work and travels. We stayed with Lazarus often,
Okay.
and so if you were Lazarus, thank you so much for your support.
Yeah, and you know what he does? He's single and he has a lovely house. He's always letting travelers stay with him. He's
Right?
still
Yeah.
doing it in this life.
That it would not surprise me if he was Lazarus,
Yeah,
but I don't
he's a
verify any
cool
longer.
guy, and he's spent a lot of years he was into a lot of this stuff when I was just still reading cards, not touching that stuff. Anyway, for those of you who are wondering why are we saying that he was an apostle and stuff, can you kind of briefly, however long it takes, explain to people who have just wandered in and haven't seen you to understand who you are, and then we'll get into how you work and what you do.
Okay, great. I grew up a good Catholic boy in an Irish Catholic family, and was living that life just happily along. And I was one day at a party, and a woman across the room stood up, and she wandered over to me. She says, "Oh my God, you were an apostle." And I was like, "What?" At this point in my life, I'd never done anything with psychics or readers of any kind. And as a Catholic boy, we just don't go that way. And I was like, okay, whatever. And then I was kind of intrigued. So I did schedule a reading with her. And she, in the second reading, revealed this past life. So then I was like, okay, I'm blowing that off. And I went to a holistic fair, and I was walking through the fair, and some lady stopped the reading, ran out in the aisle, grabbed my arm, and said, "They're telling me you were John the Beloved." And then I had a total of 19 different psychics spontaneously tell me. I didn't go in for readings.
Right.
Spontaneously tell me. And then after that, you kind of get really curious. And I decided that I want to find a more scientific approach. And I went to a past life regression therapist in Washington, D.C., who regressed me. And I had a full, very visceral remembrance of that life. When I say visceral, I could feel the air, smell the wind, everything. And I remembered meeting Jeshua ben Joseph. My name was Yochanes ben Zebedee, which is John. And the first reader, when she did our third reading, she actually channeled. And when she channeled, her face completely changed. And she said, "John of old, John of new, I love you, I've always loved you, I will always love you, I'm with you, I've always been with you, I always will be with you." Which is why I call myself John of new.
Okay,
Because
great.
John of old was that guy. John of new is John Davis. And so I think it's important that we do stay in the idea that it doesn't matter who anybody was in the past. It only matters what you do now.
That's right.
And what I'm doing now is I'm bringing the original teachings back out. And I'm really gratified to see so many people commenting on my videos that I put out, how they see the truth in it, or they feel that it resonates with them. And, spirituality is a personal journey, and each one of us has to feel our own truth in our own way. And to me, that is the most gratifying work. And truly think it's divinely guided, because I have a podcast called the Spirit Cafe Podcast, and we invited Kim to come on as a guest. And Kim came on to our program. And during the program, I kind of mentioned that I had a past life, but years ago, I came out with this, and it became a real struggle because of everyone got so focused on who I was rather than what I was teaching. And so I ended up stopping. And I spoke for the Edgar Cayce foundations all over the country, and I did a lot of big work back then. So when Kim came on our channel, I was not ready to come back out of the.
I don't blame you.
And in the interview, I mentioned, I had some big past life stuff, and we got off the air, and Kim says, "All right, tell me about your past life." And all of a sudden, it was like floodgate let loose. I just laid everything out to her, and then within a day, she asked me to come be an interview on her.
That's where I saw you.
Right, and so I said, sure. So I put out my prayer, my thoughts, what is this about? And I got the intention that it was time for me to come back out. It was time for me to bring that. So on the morning of the interview with Kim, I put together my YouTube channel and put together my website that day too. And so before that interview, I had 4 subscribers. I literally had me, my co-host, my sister, and my friend. And today we're rounding. We're almost to 500 subscribers in less than 3 weeks, and it's growing just exponentially, which I think is wonderful, because the feedback I've been getting has just been absolutely wonderful. And I really think it's a divine movement right now, that we're all coming into a new age of enlightenment, and I just want to be a part of bringing the truth forward again.
Cool. I feel the same way. People will say, I've been told all kinds of things by Akashic records, and you're Palladian, you're a star Palladian, you're one of the first ones here, you're one of the oldest souls I've ever met. And I'm like, yeah, but what is Nancy doing today? I mean, the other stuff was great, and it's great to know I have the guides I have, and it's great to know that I have the pushes I have, and I need to listen to them. But it really is, what's on the table today? Who can I help? Who can I listen to? And I really, having been raised, you actually look a little like my great uncle, who was an Episcopal priest. Also, by the way, we're getting contributions. Thank you to everyone who's contributing. May Yang and Rose B are contributing. Thank you very much. That helps keep us going. But John, I don't think is in. I know, for my heart tells me you're not in it for the money. I mean, there'd be a lot of other ways you could sell what you're doing and make money. I just want to help people be the best people that they can be, and
that is the key. Is
Yeah.
getting them to a loving place, as
Right.
opposed to a material and hateful place.
right. And your story tells people some bit about regression hypnosis. I have not done that specifically. I've done it in groups, and I've gone back and seen things. But I have a friend who's done very formal things in an office, all laid down, quiet and tape recorded and everything. And in each of the lives that she did, in 2 of them, I was there. I mean, the therapist said, "You know this person in this life. Who is it?" And she's been a great inspiration to me. And she's the one I call when am I right or wrong? And she's the one who'll say, "You're wrong." But
Those are the best kind of friends.
oh yeah, yeah, and so that's to kind of clear it up for people. If you're going to do regressions, you can do them in group things. You can do a regression at home with a meditation. I would think, from my understanding of where my brain tends to go, that's a little dangerous. I'd rather do it in a controlled environment. But then you can learn a whole lot, and you did it to solve the mystery you have. So I'm really glad. And you worked with Edgar Cayce's foundation.
Yeah,
for a
the
while?
Association for Research and Enlightenment. I spoke for them in Portland and Houston and Virginia Beach. And I also did unity churches and metaphysical centers all over the country. There was a book written about me a long time ago by the first psychic. I don't get any proceeds off that book whatsoever. She's keeping the proceeds herself. But if you want to find it, it's still on Amazon today. It's called John of Old, John of New.
Okay.
And that's still out there. You said earlier about how I don't do this for the money. I was a corporate speaker before, a motivational speaker. And that is a very lucrative career. And to be really blunt about this, when you come out and say that you're a reincarnated apostle, corporate people don't tend to like that.
Oh, I can't imagine.
And so it's kind of shooting myself in the foot to come back out. But when you're pushed the way I'm pushed right now, I really am pushed to put this back out and to get, and that's been the most amazing thing, is I think the timing was right, because 20 years ago when I did this, all they could focus on was my past life. And this time, the questions I get are so wonderful, because they're like, what does this mean? And how do we deal with this situation? So we're actually talking about practice now as opposed to the past life.
Right.
And that's the key, is the practice, the teachings themselves.
One of the questions we got in the query, I asked on my community page, and someone said, "Are we born in innocence or are we born in guilt?"
Well, think about this: is you're born from a completely unconditionally loving place. If you're a parent, when you held your baby for the first time, did you say, "Ooh, what a wretched sinner"? or did you go, "Oh my God, I love this child," and feel that unconditional love for that child? We are not born in sin. That is a tool used to keep people underfoot, so that they can hold power over them. They're born in sin so they have to be baptized into the church, so they have to be indoctrinated into our teachings, so that we can control it. And that's not what Jeshua taught. That's not what we knew. Love is completely unconditional until we put a condition on it. And that's my take on that scenario.
Yeah, I'm going to do a show on being a lapsed Presbyterian. I became an Episcopalian, but Presbyterians believe in the elected. They believe in the predeterminism. And that's why when people started saying your whole life path is in your horoscope, I was like, oh no, not this shit again. Sorry about that. But, you know, because I'd already kicked that one when I was a teenager. I went, this is the stupidest thing I ever heard. You know, why would you send people in if you already knew? I mean, why do the whole thing here? You know, just
Right.
ship them off. So I was, when you were holding the baby, I said, if he says, oh, you are not among the elected, I'm going to go, whoa.
No. I really truly believe that religions are an attempt to wrap understanding around something that's so simple we have a hard time understanding it.
Mm-hmm.
And what it is God is love. God, the whole and the phrase we are made in God's image. I think the word "in" is misinterpreted because I don't mean "in" as in we look like that. Is we are in the image. This is the image that we are in,
Right.
and we can create fully within the image itself just by our thoughts, words, and deeds, which are only active in one present moment. You can't do anything in the past anyway, and you can't do anything in the future anyway. It's the I am moment, not the I will be or I was.
Right.
And so it's how you take care of this moment.
Let me go check and see. Catholic school. Oh, someone just had a flashback to Catholic school. I'm sorry. I'm so
Hang
sorry.
on, let me get my ruler.
Yeah. And I'll put on my habit with that funny little hat.
Well, but speaking of that, coming after Christmas sometime, I'm in the middle of finishing up my book right now. That literally is called The Recovered Catholic's Guide to Spirituality.
Oh, good. I have a couple friends I could send that to. I grew up in a very Catholic town, and I was in the very Protestant part of the very Catholic town. Another person asked, and if you don't want to read on this one, because I don't, John speaks more to the overall spirit, but he and I have been talking about how we feel like we're on this journey, and someone wrote, is 2022 going to be better for getting together with families? Now, I don't know what's splitting your family apart. I don't know if it's disease. I don't know if it's ideology, which is also another disease. It's a disease of the mind, but I feel like we're all moving really fast, and I talked to someone about this morning. How do you feel about it? I feel like we're on two tracks, and there's some folks that are going this way, and some folks are going this way.
Absolutely, I believe that we are all creating our experience, and we're all going to have different experience about it. But if you are staying in that loving place and decide you're going to go and express your love with family, then that's going to happen. But there are going to be some who just will not go there. I just recently spoke for a group of senior center activities managers, and they said that one of the biggest issues that they're having now is since COVID started, that everyone got locked into their rooms.
Right.
And now that they're out of COVID, nobody wants to come out of their room because they're all very comfortable in their rooms and they've closed off, right? So it literally is a matter of getting people themselves to step back out and go back out with family and travel and do those things, but doing it wisely. My sister, fully vaccinated, her and her husband went to a giant concert biker rally in a city near their hometown, and both of them got breakthrough COVID cases. Like,
Yep.
we still have to be careful, but until this COVID thing is over, which it's going away right now.
Yeah, I'm getting my third shot tomorrow, which is why I have
Are you?
nothing scheduled for the end of the week, guys. I had the first two shots. The only reason I knew I had a shot is I took the Band-Aid off the next day. But I understand after it's been running around your body a while, you can react differently. So I'm kind of slowing it down so that I'm ready for whatever shows up.
My
But-
second shot knocked me down for 2 days.
Yeah, one of my
Knocked me down
son,
hard.
my son who had pneumonia as a child, and that's why he's only 30, but he was like in almost the first group they vaccinated. Because if you have a child who had pneumonia before the age of 3, they're 10 times more likely to get it as an adult. And so we've been very cautious about him and colds and things like that. And he got that shot, and he's not a whiny little kid. He was so sick. I mean, he felt like he had the flu, but he said he didn't have the breathing problems or anything. His body just was going, we know what this crap is, but we're going to sweat it out,
Right.
And so but we'll see. I would not tell anyone, don't go get the shots. My experience with shots are wonderful. I've had other friends who've gone and they thought it was like a little bee sting, or they felt a little warm the next day, and then there are people who get sick for a couple of days.
And the concept of the shot itself is good intention, well intentioned. And so even the energy behind the shot is a positive, and so all of the stuff that has come out against the shot have all been fear-based controversies, and do the things that are loving and do the things that were well-intentioned, and the vaccines are well-intentioned. That's why they're free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other part, is that they are, and that they're there universally for everyone.
Right.
So, and I don't want to get on talking about people who don't do that, but
I get it.
so, but what I feel the same way John does. You have to look at each situation. You have to look inside yourself and say, is this worth the risk? And are these people worth the risk? And if you have family members that are dragging you back, understand now is the time when we have to make our own decisions. There's no more. I don't listen to John's channel if you want to hear some things. And you're not proselytizing. You're just saying, this is how it is. And some of the times I've listened to several of his recordings because he was going to be on my show. I thought it might be at least nice. But you talked about, am I a reflection of, is everyone a reflection of me? And I had learned that years ago in the metaphysical world, that when someone shows up in my face and they're all, that they're a reflection of some part of me that's going, and once I learn that, then they'll either calm down or they'll just go away and leave me alone.
It's true. It's very true. And if you call them on it, you're just escalating it.
Mm-hmm.
So what you need to do is stay calm and not antagonize by giving them the reaction that they're hoping to give. Mm-hmm. And when you calm yourself, it calms them directly.
Well, see, that would be the corollary. If I'm running into this person who wants to chew my face off, and they run into me, and I just smile and say, I'm sorry that's the way you feel, and they're running into calm, the corollary would be some part of them wants to find calm.
Right, exactly.
Wants to find peace.
And the question is, are you going through this world delivering that peace, that love, or are you delivering the thing that's antagonizing? I'm often surprised. I'm a smiler. I walk through my life with a permanent smile stuck in my face. It's just who I am. And I'm always surprised. I walk past people and they do a double take and they're shocked to see someone smiling. But what always happens after that reaction is they smile back.
Yes.
And so you have to be that calming influence in the world, that loving influence in the world. As far as what I say on my channel, I don't expect anybody to believe what I say. All I'm doing is I'm telling the truths that I learned from that lifetime. And I've never asked anybody to follow. I had somebody come on my channel early on and saying that I was trying to create a religion. And I'm not. I'm telling people to follow their own truth.
Right.
Because if it sounds right, follow it. If it doesn't sound right, don't follow it. Because that's the key.
Someone just put on the thing about operating in fear. They were putting it on a specific subject, but so much. Trust me, I worked in politics. I know hitting the fear button, you get more people to vote out of, oh my God, this is going to happen to me if I don't handle it this way, than you do out of saying, wonderful, warm things. The only campaign I ever worked on that was wonderful, warm things was Obama in 2008. Other than that, almost every candidate I ever ran on, it was like, whose ox is going to get gored?
Right, and that's not new. I mean, that's what Constantine did at the Nicene Council in 325. When he changed the Bible and knocked 60 books out of the Bible. It was all about how can we create the fear and the anxieties, and how do we get control of this crowd that's getting so big. That's the same situation now in politics.
Well, the other thing is, the council at Whitby that met in the 1100s to combine what had been the Celtic Catholic Church with the Roman Catholic Church. Churches have been petty for a long time. The biggest argument at the council at Whitby was, where would the tonsure be? Would it be on the top of the head or at the back of the head? Because I don't know which one had which one. But meanwhile, they were casting out. They had women abbesses. They had women in the Celtic Church that had great power. They threw all them to the side and turned them into typical Catholic nuns. None of that's what they spent days on where their damn bald spot was going to be. Churches can get mired in trivia, and when the argument gets into that stuff instead of the outcomes, I'm like,
Yeah, I grew up in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, which has got the nickname of the nation's gay summer capital. So it's got a lot of, LGBTQ come there for vacation, and the Catholic Church in that town used to have a big mansion on the beach, and it was the place where all the priests would come and vacation, and they all would try to get that diocese because they could come down and hang out in Rehoboth Beach. And I cannot tell you how many times I have walked past a gay bar and seen the priest coming out hand in hand with somebody else. They're not allowed to express that love and compassion that is natural, because love is, if God is love, love is never wrong.
right.
And to see, but one night I saw one coming out, I said, "Evening, Father," and he turned white as a ghost because I was standing there. And I was like, look at the fear that's in him for thinking he's doing something wrong when he's not.
Yeah.
But that's what the church has done to them.
We're getting some big thank yous. A lot of people. Oh, somebody said it's hard to see smiles now that people have to wear masks, but you still need to wear the damn mask or you won't be around to smile. So that's kind of
Draw a smile on your mask.
yeah.
Draw something funny on there.
One of my sons has one, and it's an absolutely evil smile. You don't want that smile on your mask.
I actually had a T-shirt made just to make people smile, and it said, you're gonna laugh. It said, "Poop, ha, made you smile." And you know what it did? It made people smile and laugh the entire time I wore that shirt.
That's great. Then, okay. Wait a minute. We got a long one. I have a problem setting boundaries since I have been. Oh, it's a woman who's talking about she's been setting boundaries for herself. But since she started setting boundaries, all of a sudden she's getting a lot of people showing up to test them.
Of course.
Do you have some? Yeah. Do you have some wisdom for us?
Absolutely. When you get into fear and you start putting up shields to protect yourself, you are actually saying to the universe and to God that you need to protect yourself against something. So it's going to give you something because of your belief that something you need to be protected from. For instance, here's a funny story, and it's a Hollywood story. When Harrison Ford first learned to crack a bullwhip for Indiana Jones, the guy came and said, "Hey, I'm going to teach you how to crack a whip." And now, this is a Hollywood story, so who knows whether it's true or not, but this is the story that I heard as a stuntman. He said, "Okay." So the next day, Harrison Ford showed up on set wearing a motorcycle jacket, welding gloves, and a helmet, because he didn't want to get hit by the whip, right? Well, if you've ever cracked a whip, you know that it's like more of a Zen experience. If you put on jackets and helmets and gloves, you are actually creating things for it to hit, and you're creating a struggle. And it's the same thing with your life. Live loving, don't live fearing. And if you're putting up barriers, it's because you're in the fear mode, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Well, she said what she's finding is she stands her ground and has her beliefs, and that they go away. So she gets to confirm her beliefs.
Great.
So
Great.
that's good things.
Some of the boundaries that you do have to set is like when someone comes up to you and gets in your face and starts getting, the boundary you can set for yourself is to be in action, not in reaction.
Right.
I mean that in itself is, I'm in a loving space, and that'll always diffuse the situation, as long as you stay in the loving space.
I agree, and sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's with regretted teeth, and sometimes it's hardest for the people who are putting up questions about family. It's hardest with those that you have been told you need to love.
Right. I'll tell you an interesting story. I had a woman come to me one time. She said, "John, I'm ending my relationship with my mother." And I said, "What? Why?" She said, "Because every time we get together, we fight, we butt heads. It's just a horrible experience, and I don't want to go through that anymore." I said, "Well, here, do this for me first. Next time you see your mother and you start butting heads, as it's happening, just stop, take a breath, and exhale, and say, 'Mom, no matter what you do or say, I will always love you.'" And she said, "Well, I don't think I could say that." I said, "Why?" She said, "I don't feel that." I said that I give you permission to say it and not think it until she gives you a reason to think it. And the next time she saw her mother, they got together and they started butting heads, and she went, Mom, no matter what you do or say, I will always love you. And Mom broke down crying, and they hugged each other, and they've had the greatest relationship ever since. What they both wanted was love from the other. And Mom was in a mom position trying to protect her from whatever by putting her in a situation and dictating to her. And she was in a situation where she wanted to just be an adult. And so they were both kind of just in this space of wanting love and respect. And by saying, no matter what you do or say, I will always love you, that is a statement of unconditional love. And then Mom felt under unconditional love and no longer needed the love.
I have an interesting question. I think you've kind of answered it, but maybe we could do a better job because I obviously missed it. Someone wants to know, is John, why are you here now?
I love this question. I get this question a lot. And the question I have to ask you is, why are you here now? And the reason I ask that back because people, that question is based on, why is John the Beloved here? And I'm not John the Beloved, I'm John Davis. And I just happen to have these memories that have come through. But I've known other people who've had memories as well, right? Anything that's happened behind yesterday, behind today,
Right.
There's nothing that changes there. So why is John Davis here? Well, John Davis is here to live a loving life, and I think that's why we're all here in general. And people want to make it into, why are the apostles returning? Why, but I think everybody's returning, and I think I'm just one of the lucky guys who happen to have a memory of that past life. But it doesn't matter. It only matters what you're deciding to do with this moment and how you're living it.
That's right.
And that's what I'm doing as well.
Great answer.
Thank you. Thank you.
And what else can I say? It's your answer, right? You and I discussed this offset before we thought, but we are really in an active time of change. And a lot of things are becoming, we're not going to have an old normal. We're going to have a new normal. And I think the new normal is going to be better.
It's going to be beautiful.
And I think with regards to your people who are that are in assisted living or in old folks' homes, because I'm old, I think of them in strange ways. But I got locked down with my last pregnancy, and I was in the hospital for 3 months before he was born. And they actually had to send someone to talk to me about how difficult it was going to be when I left. And my husband said, what the hell are they talking about? You're going to want to get out of here. You're going to want to go home. You're going to want to be with your stuff. And I realized they were poking at a very raw thing. You get very used to that institutionalized living. I imagine it's somewhat like being in prison. And then when you get out, I was warned that as I walked down grocery aisles, sometimes the shelves would seem to arch in on me. And it's a visual thing because you've lived in this kind of controlled space. So I think people need to be aware. We're going through some great changes. If you're willing to open up your eyes and say, hey, this is great, I'm going to use this, it's going to work, or kind of whatever you want to choose to do. But it's healing. It's the malachite that we pulled at the beginning. It's that stone. It's healing. It's healing the heart. And that's where we are at this time. And you and I discussed this. So I'd like you to kind of talk a little bit about how you view our path forward.
Well, this is a great question because, I am a very present moment person. And when you look at, from a biblical standpoint, Jesus said, whatever you ask in God's name is granted. And Moses said God's name was I am. So it really comes to you deciding to take this moment. But here's the tough part that most people are going to have coming out of this. Over the past couple of years, they've created this subconscious memories of fear and anxiety because they've been building this stacked memories, these moments where they've been locked down, moments where they couldn't see their family and friends. And they've created this underlying subconscious belief. But the subconscious mind has two jobs. One is to show you what you're focused on, and one is to store these beliefs. And the one that shows you what you're focused on, to give you an example of that, if you've ever decided what kind of car you wanted to buy, I'll bet you started seeing that kind of car before you went to
Oh,
the store to buy
God,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, right. So that's
Yeah.
your subconscious mind showing you where you're focused. And so people who are negatively focused see negative things, which stacks negative into their subconscious mind, which creates an unending barrage of negativity. And it really comes down to this moment where you've got to decide to grab a hold of your present moment and start stacking new memories. And so you have to start changing your belief about your present moment. When I ask people what the word amen means, they usually don't know. But what it means is so be it. It means right here, right now, it's done. And so the other thing is people look at where here and they look, God, I really want to get there. I want to get back with my family. I want to get back with it. And they don't, and they're so focused on up ahead of themselves that they're not staying present because you're never going to get there in the future. It's coming to you depending on how you do your present moment. So you have to stay in the I am moment. You have to do the small little tasks, small little things, and keep them in alignment with what you want, and that's how it comes to fruition. So if you want to have a loving, joyful future, start making small, loving, joyful moments that can stack in your subconscious mind, fill up over here, and then this thing moves into your experience, because when you experience it, it's going to be in your present moment.
We're getting a lot of people agreeing that we're moving to a gentler place. And someone had a visit last night from St. Francis of Assisi.
Really?
Yes, and she said it was kind of scary, but it's been very healing for her, whatever the subject that was brought up.
I one time met a man who remembered some of that life of Francis Assisi, and when I was speaking to him, there was definitely something different there. And I think I told this story on the interview with Kim about suddenly I got the name Dolores Mancini, and I was talking, and that was him. I got that name, and I got Anthony Barbagella. Those are the two names that popped out in his reading. But it was, he was connected in a very big way, in a very loving way, and I really enjoyed just being in the presence.
Okay, I got oh, there people are really thanking us for talking about these subjects. I saw the most and I'm guilty of this before Facebook decided to take a nosedive yesterday, but I passed on a meme, and it was the Saint Francis of emails, Saint Francis of Assisi.
Really?
Yeah.
So
So
there's something there.
yeah, there's something there. I mean,
Now he's a very nature oriented saint. So
oh, I know.
maybe all this green works that they're trying to get through right now will get through.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and we need to. I can't tell you guys. I get into conversations with people and they start pulling apart. Well, it's a 1.5, not a 3.5, and all this stuff. And if you look back at our budgets, 1.5 is like a huge number. I mean, we've never had anything close to that before. And that will help a whole lot of people. But people get drawn in by the press. If it bleeds, it leads. Kind of fear mongering, and I keep telling people, don't focus on the people who are voting no. Focus on the people who can be drawn into the yes. And let the other ones go live their life and have that energy. But you need to focus on feeling positive about it, because the more, I don't think the pharaohs had it wrong when they said that we are kept alive by when our names are said. And I think so. If there's a politician that just makes you bonkers, don't say their name.
Right.
Something comes
Right.
up to watch about them, don't watch it.
Right.
You know.
And to tap into ancient Egypt again, there was an ancient pharaoh named Sneferu, and Sneferu is famous because he grew the Egyptian empire bigger than any other pharaoh. And whenever you read about Sneferu, the thing he's most famous for was treating everyone as a brother or a friend.
Oh, cool.
So treat everyone as a brother or a friend, a brother or sister, whatever gender, a friend, and no matter what they are, and have different beliefs. And understand, even in the religious worlds, there's a lot of people who knock down other religions. Islam means peace, Muslim means follower of peace. And, he who knows not kindness has no faith is Muhammad. So, they're all coming from a loving place, but people do atrocities in their name all the time. Those people aren't true followers of these various faiths.
That's true. Someone asked in big cap letters, "How do we feel about Christianity today?" I'll let you start it. And I will. Truth in advertising, my first husband that I divorced was a theologue. So I know a little more about this stuff than people know.
The one question I would ask is which version? There's so many versions of Christianity today.
Right.
When you get into evangelical Christianity, they're still so fear-based. I mean, and so much so that they're writing these books about the rapture, which isn't in the Bible.
Oh,
The
well,
ra- it's not. It didn't get invented until Darby wrote it in 1830. And it was him channeling information, right? So the rapture's not there. But as far as Christianity today, I see some major changes happening in some branches of it. Unity and some of those are really starting to bring in Buddhist monks and look at other things. And that's very unique and very fun. I've had some really good times with Unity churches. But I think all organized religion, as I said earlier, is trying to wrap sense around something so simple. And what I'm noticing now is that all of the Christian churches are losing their parishioners. And there was a metaphysical center that I used to speak out here in Ohio, actually, and they would rent out the choir loft for their center of a church. And what happened was, eventually they outgrew the choir loft and had to go find a building. And the reason they were the church was renting out the choir loft is because they were trying to pay the rent because they were losing their parishioners. But what I found fascinating was the parishioners of the Christian church went up and graffitied the walls of the metaphysical center saying they were Satan worshipers and everything else. And so Jesus, or Jeshua ben Joseph, was a loving, caring individual. He never would have condoned anything that most Christians do today. If I was going to say one thing, I would say what Gandhi said. I love your Jesus. I don't like your Christians.
yeah. And that's the truth. I went to an Episcopal church that we had a very, very liberal priest in a very, very conservative, because it was down here in Texas, diocese. And I remember one Sunday, the bishop came, and we always paid our dues, so he kind of didn't screw with us too much. He came and he was all in his regalia because he was welcoming people into the church. We had a bunch of Buddhist monks coming to discuss Buddhism. And we had another group that also had their bright, bright, bright colors. It looked like Halloween. But that was the church I went to. One year we had a series. We had rabbis come in. We had priests,
Wonderful.
Buddhists. We had Hindus. We had everybody come in. And if we could arrange it, they'd bring some of their food, which is always, to me, the most universal way to get to someone. Hey, their food doesn't taste bad. Maybe I ought to listen a little closer.
Right.
But one of the people was saying, when I was talking about the Egyptian thing about if you keep the person's name alive, by saying their name, you keep them alive. They're talking about that's sort of she comes from a tradition that has the Day of the Dead. And that's part of that tradition of the Day of the Dead, to honor those who've passed and remember those who've passed, which is another way to get in touch with your own spirit and to let go some of that fear about what's going to happen to me next,
Right. When I look at the Day of the Dead, I think it's wonderful because I think, my mother, as I said, was devoutly Catholic, and she went over on the other side a couple of years ago, and she has come through a medium like 4 or 5 different times for my brothers and sisters and I, and as a Catholic, she never would have done that, right? But I think, and I said this to someone the other day, when you cross over, you're going to cross over with your beliefs, and it's going to be wrapped in your belief when you get there, but it's going to transition very quickly, and all those wrappings are going to fall away, and you're going to get into this unconditionally loving space. And once all the trappings fall away, and you start to realize the simplicity of it is so beautiful that it changes your whole perspective.
Right.
And that's why I think she can come through. And my favorite quote of Buddha is, when you realize how perfect everything is, you'll tilt your head back and laugh at the sky.
Right.
I mean, that's the way it is. It's so perfect.
Well, I did a show. I worked an artist show, and she's a commercial artist, but she'd found out she could channel in portraits of people who had died for family members. And
Wonderful.
it was in this old church, and she had these big, huge canvases where she'd made their paintings. But the one I really remember was the brother who had died, and he'd been head of a motorcycle gang, and when he died, he'd had a swastika on his forehead.
Mm.
And what they did is they had a telephone there, and it's as if they called us from heaven and told us what was going on. You could hear the voice on the phone. And when they whipped the canvas that was covering the portrait off so you could see it, the guy, they had changed the swastika into a peace symbol.
Oh.
And he was just outraged. Where's my swastika? Where's my I mean, he was just still in his anger state from dying. And the scriptwriter had worked with her, because while she was painting, she'd tell him what she was feeling off this guy. It was really kind of funny because, and the other thing that bugged him was he'd been given an angel named Francois who was supposed to help him transition. And he goes, "Get this guy away from me. I don't want to be here. I want to go to hell where I'm supposed to be." And he said, "Don't send that Francois in to tell me that there is no hell and I'm where I'm supposed to be." But it was so funny, and I thought, that does, I'm sure, happen to people.
Sure, absolutely.
And it ended
Absolutely.
up this guy had been killed in a motorcycle gang fight. And, and I was talking with one of his family members who'd come to this exhibition, and she said, that's just how he would be. And she said, she talked to the woman, and the woman said shortly after that she had a feeling that his energy had moved on, that she had caught them at that one time. The other people she did portraits of, they talked about some of the regrets, how they didn't take care of things, and then how beautiful it was, and how they would hope their families wouldn't waste their time being separate. They almost
Right.
all talked about being, the only one who wanted to still be separate was the guy with this peace symbol on his forehead.
Right.
But anyway, so I think that I have several friends I'm sure are going to be shocked when they cross.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure my mom went across and met Jesus face to face, the one that she expected to meet, and then had a transition very quickly into the loving space. My mom, with her master's degree in liturgy, she lived her faith in a very loving way.
Mm-hmm.
She was constantly doing secret missions of loving kindness to people without telling anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember a friend of mine one time said to me, "John, your mom's an angel." I'm like, what do you mean? He said, "Well," he said, "my family, we were both Catholic families. He had 8 kids in his family. He had 7 in ours." And he says, "My mom came to us and said, we're out of money. We have no idea where the next meal's coming from." And she said, "Can we all just sit down and pray?" And they sat down and prayed. At the end of the prayer, there was a knock at the door. And my mom walked in with 10 grocery bags of groceries, and then went back out to the car and brought in a roast she had cooked for dinner that night.
Mm-hmm.
And mom just knew that they needed the food. And
Right.
and none of us in the family knew mom was doing it.
Well,
And that to me is the key.
yeah.
Be loving and don't expect to be seen doing it.
Well, there's a story in the Bible about the poor woman who goes and just puts her few pennies in the altar box at the temple, and it was one of your old buddy's stories. And then there's a guy who marches in, and he's all showing, and they're banging drums and everything, and he takes his money, and I think Jesus says something like, "Which do you think is more beloved in heaven?" And I think
Right.
I was always there for the woman.
It was all she had.
That's all she had, and she gave from her heart. This guy gave from, "Lets me show you what I can do," not what I'm really, not that I'm my heart, my spirit's behind it.
Right. Right.
Okay, somebody's talking about All Saints Day, which is another one of those things.
Well, saints in general is a Catholic thing, because that was that's canonized a saint within the Catholic Church.
Right.
Saints are not in the Bible.
No, but souls are. I mean, there are
Souls
souls
are.
in there somewhere.
Absolutely.
Well, and so this was kind of an intro to John's channel. For those of you, it's John of New, N-E-W. And I did put a little thing in my description about how to find your YouTube channel, and then I put the thing, everything old is new again. And I didn't even know about the old John, new John. So
Yep.
But for my folks who want to see me do it, and I got a couple comments, I'm going to roll. Do you mind if I roll about
Oh,
your channel?
I'm thrilled. I'm excited to see it.
Okay. We're going to roll about the situation for the next 6 months around John's channel. Okay?
Oh, that'd be great.
Oh my God. And you're all out in the outer ring. He's firmly not part. This is earth, fire, water, and air, and that's almost a shamanic tradition. It shows that you want to enlighten people away from what's false. This is values. Your body is true. That means that everything you're saying is ingrained, and it's a part of your, not just your soul journey, but it's embodied within every cell of you. That's what body and true means. You've got your mind is between the throat chakra and the third eye, which means you speak your mind well. You can see things very, very well. Your spirit, you speak your spirit. This is the crystal that means spirit. And clarity, man, you are so tuned in. It's just like the messages just come right in that third eye and go right to that mind and go right out that mouth. So this tells me that your channel is going to move forward swimmingly. And by next fall, you're just going to be in a totally different place. You're going to have a huge boost in the spring. Okay, you can tell seasons. This is winter, spring, summer, fall. Fall's going to be really important for you. This is Kim kicking your butt and making you get your channel going. But it shows that a year from now, you're going to be way, way, way up there. People are going to be understanding and listening to you. And you're going to be really feeling like you're cooking with gas, as my father used to say. You're well on your way to knowing where you're going. It's a really positive reading. It did fall all out in the outer rings, which means that is a forward-looking thing. If things land in here, these are the grounding things, and these are usually very personal and part of this, what you do to resolve things. But you have no problem stones on here. I mean, you don't have anything that's throwing, although this is a 4 and 5D medium for reading. I channeled it in February. I've only had a real scarf to work with from May on. So we're just learning about it now. But it only really produces positive, forward-looking, take care of yourself things.
Thank you so much. My biggest goal in life has been to just make a difference in the world. I would love to leave this world like I'm the captain of a boat, leaving a positive wake behind me, but no one can remember who piloted the boat.
Well, yeah, you are very modest about that, and that's a good thing, because it's usually, like I said, my first husband was a theologue, and he was educated to go preach at a certain kind of church, and there were an awful lot of them. Of course, it was during Vietnam, and that was a way to get a draft deferment, which I'm sure had something. That's why Calvin Hill, the football player, was there, so the Cowboys could keep him playing football. And he was a lovely man, and he really did, when we talked to him about theology, he really kind of knew what was going on. He and his wife Janet was really, really smart. His wife Janet was Hillary Clinton's roommate in college.
Oh, wow.
And one time she said to me, "Oh, my old roommate in college, she's up and her husband's the governor of Arkansas. Why the hell did she stick herself there?" She moved on from there, Janet. But the Hills, their son Grant Hill was a basketball player, and I remember he was a huge child, and I said, "Are you going to let him play football?" And she said, "Absolutely not." But Calvin was very well educated, but there were an awful lot of people that were in there to either dodge the war or get a collar around their throat and then have people respect them, whether they should be respected or not. So I understand when people say someone puts something on here about Christianity makes her barf. Certain Christians do. The overall concept of it, yes, it's done some very weird things, but don't throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Do I have time to tell a quick story?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm 13 years old. I'm an altar boy. My mom was the organist at our church, and she was obviously at the early mass, and I was being an altar boy for the second mass. So I woke up late, and I realized I was late. So I ran upstairs, and I snarfed down my Cheerios, and I threw my bike over the back fence, because that was the fastest way to get to the church. Rode my bike as fast and as hard as I got there. Walked on the altar. I walked in the back of the sacristy, and the priest gave me the look over his glasses, like, "What? You're late." And I walk onto the altar, and I'm doing everything I have to do. And I'm standing there on the altar under the lights. And my Cheerios didn't like that too much.
Oh no.
And I'm getting sicker and sicker. And my brother is a reader on the lectern over there. And I'm getting sicker, and I'm sicker. And I feel it coming, and I caught it in my hand. And I backed off the altar because I didn't want to let anything touch the altar. I was so terrified. My mom was up in the top playing the organ. I go outside, and I lost everything. So my brother goes over to the priest and says, "John just threw up." And the priest said, "Where?" And he said, "In his hand." And the priest said, "Good." Right? So this is the one dichotomy. The other dichotomy is when, before I threw up, my brother was sitting on the side of the altar, and a woman came up, and she says, "That young boy doesn't look good." And she was very concerned for me. So I often tell people that God was there that day. God was the woman that came up with care and love and concern. And the doctrines of the Catholic Church of good, he didn't throw up on the altar, was not the loving thing that happened that day.
No.
And so that's the way I am. I did.
He
barf
almost
on the altar.
did barf on the church just
Right.
for you.
Just for you.
These were-
And that's actually a chapter in my book that's coming up after Christmas. It's called "I Puked on the Altar."
Okay, somebody's talking about deja vu. They're expressing a lot of feelings of deja vu.
Oh, interesting.
Follow that trail with your own thoughts. Meditate on it. And meditate, when I say meditate on it, meditate means to become familiar with. It doesn't mean, you're going to out-of-body experience or anything like that. So become familiar with, why are these things coming to you now? What are you really remembering?
And as far as out-of-body experiences, don't seek for them. Just meditate, and they let them happen naturally, because they'll happen faster if you let them happen naturally.
Oh, Prince Charming's mom had the same thing happen to her that I had happen to me. She was asked to leave Sunday school at the age of 12 because
Really?
she questioned what the teacher said. I remember I told you about my predeterminism and my Calvinist family. And then, thank you so much. We're getting a lot of thank yous, and people praying that we're protected. We've got our guys. We've got our protection. And we just want to be able to say what somebody wants to know. It's John of New, and I found it on YouTube when I typed it in as one word. If you type it in separately, you get John Newman, somebody who doesn't have anything to do with you.
My channel is so new that I don't get my actual URL for another week and a half.
Yeah, I mean,
I have to be on there for 30 days. So this is
that's why I couldn't get a link to put in there. That's why I had to put in, this is what. And this morning when I was trying to get a link, finally I just typed it just as one word, John of New, as one word.
And I want to kind of share with you how much I'm being pushed to do this work. We're just around 4 weeks since that channel was done. This morning I uploaded my 60-second video.
You are doing it. I mean, I was hardcore because I, for the first 4 weeks, did something almost every night. And I thought I was roaring through it. But man, I went back, I want to see some of what John, I went, whoa.
Well, it's so funny. People have been so lovely asking questions in the comments on my videos, which makes great for great video. And when somebody asks me a question and I feel inspired, I don't want to waste that inspired.
No.
I want to jump right on and get it. So now what I've started doing is I've started knocking it down to 2 videos a day instead of 4 or 5.
But the good news is they're short. And if you listen to YouTube when you're driving your car or out walking or whatever else you're going to do, you can just set it up, and there's a way you can do it at the top and just say, all John of New, and it will just run through them. I've had people tell me, oh, I've spent the last 3 weeks with you in my car going to and from work. And
lovely.
And and when you get into it enough, John, when they comment and it's a really old tape, the comment will show up for you.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I check it all the time just because I want to I want to stay in contact. I want because the information is so important to me. I want to be in the moment with the people who are asking real questions.
Yeah, and YouTube's being really good about that right now. I'm going to warn people, YouTube is not always universally good about things. And so if you go like, share, and subscribe, and share. And I got to tell you a funny story. My daughter read it to me. It was on Facebook before they were not on Facebook. There was a mother who was putting her 2-year-old to bed. And she said, "Okay, honey, night, night." And the little girl looked up in a beaming little face and said, "Like, share, and subscribe." And her mother realized she'd played so much YouTube around the kid that the kid heard everybody say that at the end and thought that was like goodbye.
The world we live in, eh?
I know, we're training them young.
Yeah, man.
Anyway, thank you so much for coming. I'm going to cut you guys off.
It's been an absolute pleasure on my end. Thank you for
And
having
really,
me on.
and we'll have you back. We'll get some more questions up and see what we're doing.
Sounds great.
We've got a big thumbs up from